You may have read the news today, but the House Judiciary Chairman, Gerald Nadler, has announced that he has subpoenaed and reached agreement with Attorney General Barr to testify before his committee in the House on March 31st. I have not yet seen verification of that from the Department of Justice, but Chairman Nadler is announcing this. The topic of this subpoena and that hearing relates to the decision by the Department of Justice to change the sentencing instructions for Roger Stone. The Department of Justice lawyers get to submit to the court what they recommend as a sentence for Roger Stone, one of the individuals indicted in connection with the Mueller investigation. And I am not kidding when I tell you that there are already members of the Democrat members of the House, including Democrat member Swalwell, I'm never trying to say his name correctly, who already said in a CNN interview over the weekend that he might consider this the changing of the sentencing guidelines, sentence requests from the Department of Justice as grounds for impeaching not just Attorney General Barr, but even another impeachment action against the president. He has talked that way on the Senate side. Elizabeth Warren, presidential candidate, she came out crying again about this is an impeachable offense. But I want to just put a little bit of context about this, where we are in this situation. As you heard from our guest yesterday, Victor Davis Hanson, after 3 years and millions of dollars and hundreds of depositions and thousands of hours of questions back and forth, what Robert Mueller found at the end of it all was zip, zero, nada, nothing. Absolutely no basis for the Trump-Russia collusion accusation by the Department of Justice against President Trump. All that the Mueller team touched, everything they looked into, all the prosecutions they undertook, all of that sprang from the completely baseless lie of an accusation against President Trump related to the Russians. So this is how Roger Stone ended up at all in front of the Mueller team being interrogated and ultimately indicted. And he was convicted. I believe it was 7 counts. He was convicted of 7 counts, all relating not to colluding with the Russians, not to, and nothing about money. It all had to do with Roger Stone, in the eyes of the FBI, having lied to them or lied to Congress. All of that related to Roger Stone at the time working for the Trump campaign, trying to get access to whatever information Julian Assange and WikiLeaks had about who hacked in to the DNC server. But the context I really want to put this in is this. This is a Democrat Party that has been talking about impeaching the president before he was sworn in. A Democrat Party dedicated to finding a reason to remove him before he was even sworn in. And after he was sworn in, looking at effort after effort after effort to remove the president, including the most recent impeachment battle we all had to watch. And finally, of course, we all know the Senate ruled that the House voted for impeachment and the Senate trial acquitted the president. But the whole hassle right now, the whole dispute has to do with the 4 lawyers, Department of Justice lawyers, who submitted, as they are required to do, as the prosecutors, submitted to the court their recommendation for how long Roger Stone should serve, what prison sentence he should get for this misleading, what they claim is misleading conduct. And they recommended 7 to 9 years, or 7.5 to 9 years. Much longer than is normally what was expected, much normally that is requested for people in these kind of cases. And what happened was President Trump put out a tweet. He basically said, sounds a little excessive. I was going to play the tweet, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show the tweet. Basically it said, sounds a little excessive, and it did sound excessive. And somewhere in the higher ranks of the Department of Justice, somebody got to those lawyers and basically said, we need to reduce that. That's crazy. That is too much. The sentence should have been something more in the range of, 1 to 3, 2 to 4, far fewer years. Because these lawyers who had prosecuted the case were offended that the higher ups in the Department of Justice said to them, embarrassed them publicly, essentially, and said, that's crazy. That's way too long. It's out of step. It's just outrageous was the word President Trump used. Those 4 lawyers quit. One of them actually quit his employment with the Department of Justice. Others are going to go back to other positions they have. But the point is, these 4 lawyers were so offended that President Trump spoke up, and that eventually someone higher up, maybe even Attorney General Barr himself, said, yeah, that's excessive. We're not going to go after that. This is a case, reminding you again, in which there was no genuine pretext, or as a word Attorney General Barr likes to use, no predicate for the investigation at all. We're now looking into how the whole hoax got started. That is what they're investigating now. This is a case with no basis to go after the president, a determination, a relentless determination by the Mueller team to go after every single individual they could find, essentially with the goal of arm twisting them into pleading guilty to something with the hope that they would somehow give them information to get President Trump. That's what this is all about. This is the Mueller team continuing their aggravated assault on President Trump. And finally, someone standing up and saying, you've got to be kidding me. Roger Stone, 7 to 9 years. The guy is 68 or 69 or something like that. You're going to put him away for that long for that? This is kind of common sense raining down, and the Department of Justice and is very upset. In fact, there have been this, not only is there this hearing now going to come up, a subpoena where you're going to see Attorney General Barr back in front of the House Judiciary Committee, but there's also statements out of other offices and, of course, mainstream media complaining that this is just an outrage and this will disrupt the justice system. What they're really saying is, how dare President Trump or the Department of Justice higher-ups, how dare they stand up for justice? How dare they challenge the almighty Department of Justice? The Department of Justice, they do have to operate freely of being controlled day to day by the president, but they are not an omnipotent power above the president. They are not an omnipotent agency in control of America with no accountability at all. What really happened in this, to close out today's first 5, what really happened is somebody called onto the carpet these 4 people for an excessive, abusive sentencing request to the court. And finally, someone said, no, actually, this abuse has to end somewhere. This, by the way, this conviction is one of these we've been talking about in the show. This is a process charge. It is because they question him and then they get him to say something slightly off and then he lied. Now, I got to tell you, Roger Stone's not my favorite guy. He did ignore the judge when she told him to stay off social media. He kept on going on social media. So, he's got a little bit of an attitude. Maybe something about what he did wasn't quite right. But you have to fight back against this egregious attack on President Trump emanating from the lawyers who were all part of the Mueller team to start with. And that, my friends, is today's first 5.